Hey there, I'm Ryan Everson, this is the Catholic Millennial, and today we're going to be talking about how we can defend the Catholic Church's teaching on premarital sex. More specifically, how we can defend the Church's teaching to a secular-minded person, or to someone who doesn't give any credibility to the Bible or to church doctrine of any kind. As you're probably aware, premarital sex is becoming increasingly accepted in our culture. Some studies say that as few as 3% of millennials have and will save sex for marriage. Many universities actually put up pamphlets in the dorms listing information about different contraceptives that students can use. This secular ideology is so prominent that public universities are advertising birth control the same way they advertise career resources. Furthermore, even most religious people, including Catholics, do not practice abstinence until marriage. Many religious people of all stripes treat this value of chastity the way they treat values of healthy eating habits. They pay it lip service, they say it's a good thing to do, but they don't actually do it. So, most of the culture thinks premarital sex is totally fine, a-okay, and many of the people who don't think it's fine do it anyways. Why is that? Here's something we need to recognize. Most people understand this value to simply be an abstract religious value. They think God likes it, but that there's no real-world practical rationale to it. There's no actual benefit to it. That is what most people think, and this is where I believe most people have been misled. And here are some reasons why. As a Catholic, I believe in one God of all things. That means that the God of the Bible is also God of morality, is also God of nature, of science, etc. He is God of all things. I also believe God is omniscient. I believe he is an intelligent designer of the universe, and therefore I believe that he didn't just make up moral laws arbitrarily. Rather, nature conforms to morality because they were both created by God. Therefore, we see that the natural law points towards the moral law. They come together. In other words, the ideology of premarital sex can be refuted simply by observing factual and indisputable occurrences in the world we live in. Here's my first example of that. One way this is evident is that the act of freely having sex with multiple partners often results in catching an STD or STI. However, it is nearly impossible to catch an STD from sexual activity when two people only engage in sexual activity with each other as mutual lifetime partners. This is the natural law clearly telling us that we are not meant to be having sex with multiple people. We're not supposed to have sex with whoever we want, whenever we want, as much as the culture tells us so. And it tells us that saving sex for marriage is the best way to prevent STDs. So for those of us who want to stay away from STDs, which should be everybody, hopefully, we're going to do a little one-on-one crash course right here, okay? Here we go. Step 1, save virginity for your spouse. Step 2, don't commit adultery. Fast dismissed, done. It's that simple. Yes, there are exceptions for people in the cases of rape and medical malpractice, and for many babies who are infected with HIV because they received it from their mothers, especially in the third world. And I truly want us to do everything we can to help these people who need treatment for these diseases, whether it was their own fault or not. But we need to look this issue in the eyes and realize that STDs are completely driven by human behavior. It's not like swine flu or the plague where a number of unlucky people just happen to get it. The human body is not designed to have sex with multiple people. And when the human body is put through things it was not designed to do, bad things happen. Again, the natural law points towards the moral law. For those who say contraception is the answer, I'll give a short answer. We could have a whole video just on this one topic, but short answer. 1, I defend the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception that is inherently wrong. But 2, even if I didn't believe that, studies from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, have shown that in recent decades, as more and more people have had access to contraception, the percentage of the population with STDs has actually gone higher and higher. Long story short, it's not working at all. Promoting quote-unquote healthcare that encourages promiscuous sex is not helping, and we shouldn't be very surprised. Here's a second reason to save sex for marriage. Saving sex for marriage allows one to give the gift of their virginity to their spouse, a very special gift which elevates that relationship far above previous romantic relationships. And consequently, the marriage is stronger than all previous relationships, which decreases the likelihood of divorce. As a study from the National Survey of Family Growth proves, individuals who enter marriage as virgins are far less likely to divorce than those who have sex before marriage. Many people engage in premarital sex because they're looking for a few minutes or a few hours of intimacy, but in return, they lose decades of intimacy when their marriage falls apart. So here are some statistics from the study. People who entered marriage as virgins within the first 5 years of their marriage had a 5% divorce rate. People who had one sexual partner before marriage had a 20% divorce rate, And then people with 2 partners before marriage had a 30% divorce rate. So from 0 partners to 2, we go from 5% up to 30%. That's a 6 times increase, 6 times more likely to get a divorce in the first 5 years if you had 2 partners before marriage. And so we see, again, the moral law is pointed towards by the natural law. Natural law points towards the moral law. And we see that God is not keeping happiness away from us, but rather he's keeping us from the short-lived pleasure of premarital sex so that we may enjoy the greater pleasure and consistent joy, lifelong joy that comes from being happily married. Therefore, even if you're skeptical on the morality of this topic, there is a clear self-interested and non-religious reason to save sex for marriage. So, premarital sex breaks apart marriage, but the damage extends far beyond the relationship of those 2 divorced individuals, because usually those 2 divorced individuals also have children. And when parents get divorced, those children are put in a challenging and unfair position. I don't think you need to be religious to recognize that having a loving mother and a loving father living in the same roof with each other is very helpful to a child's development. But in case you come across someone who's skeptical, you should know children raised by married parents get higher grades, they are less likely to be abused, they are less likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, and they are far less likely to grow up in poverty. And this one's really, really important. It's an issue for divorced families, but it's an even larger issue for single-parent homes. Listen to this. Of the child population in America, so of people living under the age of 18, children raised in single-parent homes make up 27% of the population, but they make up 62% of the population living below the poverty line. And social acceptance of premarital sex is what causes almost every single one of these single-parent homes. And then these poor kids are raised in a terrible environment, are more likely to continue the cycle of poverty in their family for the next generation, and to live in poverty for their entire life because their parents thought premarital sex was just a moral taboo with no real-world consequences. Don't tell a child with a deadbeat dad that premarital sex has no real-world consequences, because they won't take that very well, nor should they. This isn't about subjective moral truth. This is false ideology that causes a lot of pain and poverty and loneliness for millions of people, and often it lasts for their entire life. Let's consider yet another horror that occurs as a result of our culture's acceptance of premarital sex. Premarital sex accounts for over 99% of rape. Sometimes rape occurs because the individuals are not clear in giving or refusing consent to have sex, and this is a major issue. It's especially prevalent on college campuses, at which have Sexual Assault Awareness Month and other things to address the issue. And as well-intentioned as these things may be, it's never solved very much. Here's why. Secular thought cannot solve this issue because secular thought is what created this issue. Secular thought is what blew this issue up in the first place. That's why so many secular attempts to address this issue, like providing and promoting tons of birth control, have only added more fuel to the fire. And I want to be as polite about this as I can, but we're talking about statistically indisputable information here. And when people turn a blind eye to these facts, we can expect bad things to happen. When people live believing sex outside of marriage is okay, they open doors to a number of sketchy circumstances. They're playing with fire, and they put not only themselves, but those around them at risk for some very harmful and traumatizing circumstances in regards to sexual assault. So, let's review and reflect on all these weeds that have grown from this seed of thought that sex outside of marriage is perfectly acceptable behavior. Premarital sex is responsible for over 99% of STDs. Premarital sex is responsible for over 99% of rapes. Engaging in premarital sex skyrockets your probability for getting a divorce or even multiple divorces. And premarital sex forces millions of kids to be born and raised in poverty because of irresponsible decisions they had nothing to do with. And so, if one wanted to make a convincing argument that a cultural moral code that encourages sex outside of marriage is good, one must prove that the alleged good of premarital sex outweighs all this terrible evil that inevitably comes with it. To my Catholic and Christian friends, I'd like to ask that you please pray for those who prescribe to a secular viewpoint on this topic. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean it very sincerely, and I greatly appreciate it. And if you yourself have a secular viewpoint on this topic, then even if you didn't like this video, I hope it's at least giving you some new ideas to consider as we all seek to discover the truth from which all people can benefit. Thanks for watching The Catholic Millennial. God bless and have a great day. Thanks again for watching The Catholic Millennial. If you enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it with a friend and following me on social media at CatholicMblog. If you'd like more information on today's topic, click the link in the YouTube title description or visit CatholicMillennialblog.com.